Thank you for joining us tonight on the Town Hall. Remember, you can always participate and send us your ideas for topics we should cover on this show by texting 716-849-2220. Our top story tonight is the state budget. For years, Albany lawmakers would be coming together on March 31st to put together the final budget deal before midnight. Before resigning from office, Governor Cuomo was insistent that the state budget get passed on time, citing years of budget turmoil and late budgets. This year, the budget will be late. We talked to Wall Street Journal reporter Jimmy Vielkind about how it all fell apart.
Several lawmakers have said that the last-minute introduction of policy items, including a slew of proposed criminal justice changes that Governor Kathy Hochul put on the table in the middle of March, as well as Monday's announcement that she would be seeking $600 million to subsidize a new stadium for the Buffalo Bills, have bogged talks down a little bit. When things go on the table at the last minute, it can take what was turning out to be a deal or negotiations and sort of change their shape. I spoke earlier this afternoon with Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, a Democrat from Yonkers. She said that she doesn't control what gets put on the table when, but it can be frustrating.
So frustrating, in fact, lawmakers went home, putting Governor Hochul's first budget deal in limbo and raising questions about why lawmakers didn't stay to try to work something out.
The thing that is different here is this is Governor Hochul's first budget. And I'm sure she would have liked to have said that it was adopted on time. Her predecessor put a big premium, especially during his first term in office, in having budgets on time. He considered them to be a marker of government functionality. What we did hear from some Republican legislators who were in the minority in both houses was that they were surprised Democrats would leave the Capitol so early. They sort of faulted them for not negotiating, putting in longer hours before the deadline to try and get a deal in place in a more timely manner.
And joining us live now is one of those Republicans, New York State Senator from the 57th District, George Borrello. Senator, you're on your way home tonight. You've had a sense, though, for a couple of days that this was going to happen and that the budget was in danger of not getting passed tonight, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the dysfunction in Albany is clear. It's obvious that the Democrats have huge rifts within the progressive wing and the kind of more moderates. And quite frankly, nobody is willing to give. So it is a real problem. And I've never seen government so dysfunctional as it is right now in Albany.
So I think a lot of people are wondering what's up with that. You know, in the conversations you're having with your colleagues in the caucus and across the aisle, what is the holdup?
Well, first and foremost, it is without a doubt the addition of changes to bail reform. It has been an abject failure. Kathy Hochul knows it. She knows that the vast majority of New Yorkers feel far less safe, and they attribute it directly to the changes made by the radical left in passing this bail reform law. And she knows that politically she's in trouble. That's probably the biggest sticking point right now. The other thing, too, is this is a massive spending bill. And she did, to her credit, try to use some of these one-time funds that we received from the federal government to do some things that only be one time. For example, infrastructure and even funding some reserves. Well, the Democrats in the Senate and the Assembly are spending it like drunk sailors. And as a result, they're going to create recurring expenses that are going to mean big increases in taxes after this federal money disappears.
And this is the first and possibly the only budget that Governor Hochul will oversee unless she is reelected. You would think it would be a fairly straightforward process as the Democrats are in control of the legislature. Tell us more about why there is seemingly so much infighting over this budget.
Well, it's because, quite frankly, the tail wags the dog in the Democratic Party in New York State. They are intimidated and controlled by a relatively small group of far left radicals. And they influence these things, and they, quite frankly, are setting the agenda. That's evidenced by the fact that you had these aggressive protesters saying that there should be no changes to bail reform, and the leadership of the Democratic Party coalesced. And quite frankly, so did Governor Hochul. She said at the beginning of this process that there would be no changes to bail, and that she was going to take a rather, let's wait and see approach. But then when she saw the polling, and she got booed at a hockey game down on Long Island, she realized what a political disaster this is going to be. But, keep in mind that I think most common sense New Yorkers, and this is what the polls say, realize that this has been bad policy. But when you have people in New York City, legislators in the Senate and the Assembly, that live in fear of being primaried by a far left radical socialist or Marxist, they coalesce, and that's what's going on. That's what's going on right now, and that's why this budget has not been completed.
So now what, I think, is the big question. You're on your way home, but when will you go back, and what is the pathway from here?
Well, it's anybody's guess, quite frankly. We will see what happens. I suspect on the Senate side, it'll be back on Monday, although I think we'll all be back on Sunday at some point in Albany. But when actual business will take place on Monday. Really, it's going to come down to the fact is what is Governor Hochul willing to give up in order to get enough votes to pass a budget? And what that's going to mean is probably a lot of things that in the end aren't going to be good for most New Yorkers. And we are going to fight against that. We are going to debate vigorously these budget bills, and we're going to push for common sense and law and order in what we know is going to be a tough battle.
And finally, Senator, I'm shifting gears just a little bit here, but there's another wrinkle in all of this. A state Supreme Court just ruled that the legislature has 12 days to redraw the congressional district lines. Your reaction, first of all, to the judge's ruling, and if the legislature will be able to work on a budget and deal with that redistricting at the same time.
Well, first and foremost, the judge was spot on. This was blatant gerrymandering, and even good government groups like the League of Women Voters and Common Cause, which typically are liberal groups, said the same thing. They said this is probably the most egregious example of gerrymandering that in the entire nation when it came to redistricting. So the judge, by striking this down, is following the will of the people of New York State, who asked for an independent redistricting process. That being said, it's still New York, and it's likely going to mean this is going to go to the Court of Appeals, which will go in front of a bunch of Cuomo appointees, and I'm not sure that they will properly uphold the Constitution and the will of the people like this judge has done. So we'll have to wait and see.
We'll leave it there for now. We've been talking to New York State Senator George Borrello, who represents portions of the southern tier. Senator, thanks again for joining us on the town hall tonight.
Thank you so much.
And Governor Hochul has released a statement about the budget gridlock, saying in part, quote, New Yorkers should know that progress is being made and that we will put in the time it takes to reach an agreement that delivers for them and moves our state forward.